is in a state of darkness, meaning those who have joined to Messiah. And when the moon is in her ritual impurity, most likely from having just given birth, the virgin giving birth, she's in her blood, meaning natural Israel is in a state of impurity. When this is happening, then Messiah unseals wisdom, which leads to understanding. So they're in this state of being cut off from light, and now light is dawning. And these are those that are born from above, because they're the sun and the moon. They're truly nourished from the tree and truly attached to the vine, but all else is of the earth and will be shaken. They will not be shaken, those who are the sun and the moon. Instead, they get wisdom and understanding. So then all the host dropping as a withering leaf. So the source has been nourishing them, but now the source is cutting them off, starting with in heaven. And the understanding is falls to the earth. But we know that the battle begins in heaven and Satan is cast out onto the earth, but then from the earth he's cast out into the abyss. So up until this point, they have been nourished off of the source of life, off of the vine and the fig tree. And Messiah says that we are the vine, and compared also to the fig tree. So they are cut off now. So now this is the separation of iron and clay, as I understand it, of life and death. So now they're no longer going to have life. They're just going to be in fall state and just use up whatever light they had until they're no more, until they just vanish like the chaff. This is the time of the harvest. So the only thing that will remain is the vine and the fig tree. So I do not think that this is the fig tree that is withering. I think it's because their choice was of or from. So I think it's from the fig tree. This mem here means from, but it could also mean of. So the as or like the withering from fig tree. So what they're doing is the fig tree is no longer nourishing them. The vine is no longer nourishing them. So they're shriveled up, rotten fruit. So thanks for joining. Welcome. And we'd like to dive in, hopefully get to this next chapter and see what insights as we ask the Spirit to guide us into all wisdom and all understanding. And we also cut ourselves off from anything that does not benefit, anything that is falling to death, that we are not brought down with it. So those who are the fruit, as the righteous produce fruit, for them the light increases. So they were in a state of darkness, but now we're having a reversal. The light is dawning. The other ones, they might have claimed to be fruit, to be productive, to have illumination, to be wise, but if they're of the earth, they are none of these things compared to the wisdom of God. The wisdom of God is what endures. So the light is dawning on those in darkness, and those who are red as crimson are being washed white as snow. On the other hand, these are becoming a state of death, the state of darkness. And it's interesting that when we compare this, there is no talk of fruit. These are only the leaves from the vine and the foliage from the fig tree. And that's true to the Hebrew here. So this was mistranslated here. It was like a note putting in where they assumed it was unripe figs, but it specifically says leaf here, It's like the word for above. Ngala. Kind of sounds like the word for God a little bit, like the Most High is a word, a way to refer to God in the Bible. So these are just withering leaves and withering from the fig. So it doesn't say here that these are leaves from the fig tree, but when we compare that back with our Isaiah verse, we see that these are not fruits at all, but they are just withering leaves that vanish. It's possible that John, even if it's misspelled words here, it's just a very rare with word. The word he picked this to have it also be a play on bringing words, to mind the word for exalted and what is dispersion on high, nod, because the very next verse and is talking about the mountains and the hills, which we know means that if this is a verb, coming against would be all those who have exalted themselves, but and will lay them low. We're dispersed, where they admit John the Baptist does to prepare the way. Places all those of them, who especially it's going to be the leaders who could also have like to stand, so they're no longer standing. Because the reason why we put on the armor of God so that we can stand and remain standing in praise of man, referring to this specific day, a lot of like which the blame about to put on them, just like has Messiah upon them. So they do not the leaders stand because they do not have the armor. So specifically, what is getting shaken here on the earth, cut off now from is the source every of single mountain, every single hill. Admitting eventually we will disperse, the poles, and there's no more mountains, no more have hills, no longer power. Like Jerusalem. If somebody is united, like so the Tower of Babel, from their place, nothing that they plan to do a footnote here be prevented of from them. A weird but choice of words through this shaking, which could have they're no longer able to stand. So she they're no longer able to unite where and the word like join hands with each other. Is person like the first kind person who exalted himself from everything else. At least. Maybe so you could consider Adam, even if it's misspelled, but or it's just a very rare word, where he sent to the land of Nod, the land of wandering. So what people do, like with the Tower of Babel, they'll be like, we're united, nothing can dissipate us. It says, I'm strong, nothing can make me fall. And but very opposite is what happens. If this is a verb, where Cain acknowledges that it doesn't, she doesn't say it this land of wandering. To and fro, we're dispersed, where they admit that we and will so be dispersed. The second one from places of Zu, Azu, and they were shaken could also mean like to stand. So it could mean no longer standing. To and fro, and the they were shaken. Why we put on the armor of God, when so that I we look here and remain standing in that evil day. What Google Translate says the entire word is they're about. It seems very appropriate. We will disperse because it's the opposite of the Tower of Babel, where they're saying because they will unite. But what God does is He confuses their language. They are so they're cut off from this wisdom and understanding, the source of life, and instead they're forced to kind of admit we will disperse, that we will be no more, we will go off, have no longer power. Like anybody, if somebody is united like me, will kill me. He says nothing that he's seeing that do. His result will be death, be prevented from them. So, but instead now they're switching their script shaking, to say we will. They're disperse. No longer able to stand, and it's so also interesting no longer that able to unite and kind of like join hands with each other. Each person is kind of left for goat, which are those who are stubborn, and he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. So these are those who were stubborn to go their own way. That he picked this to. This word afar can be a reference to man, because from dust you came and to dust you will return. And like Abraham, I think he says that, who am I? I'm dust and ashes. So they were gods, but they die like men. So this tree had exalted itself into the heavens. So in the heavens we have the tree, like the vine, the fig tree, and the sun and the moon. But the one is of the earth, or from the earth, and the tree is cut down, it's cut off, or at least the fruit falls from it, and it dies like men. It's cut off. So they were getting nourished from the heavens, but now they're cut off from being able to enter the heavens, and they're in a state of death. And this word here, she has a note that it's odd. that it could be nifil, which is the passive, but she's saying it's active and it's a participle. So she's saying it could mean that they hide themselves, but it could be like they're just dying in the dust, like they're burying each other in the graves because it's in the passive. So it's not like something that they're causing to happen, like a hifil, it's a nifil. So they were being hidden, or they were hiding amongst themselves, but in a passive kind of way. So it's not like they're causing it. And so also it says, and kings of the earth and rulers and wealthy. So it started off with those that are exalted, the leaves, and then it gets more specific, the mountains and the hills, meaning all those who have exalted themselves. And then it gets more specific to tell you these are the rulers of the earth, the kings, the wealthy, the officers, the officials, and even the servants, and down to the bondservants. Yes, those also could be those who have exalted themselves to be arrogant against God. So they didn't realize that it was God that was nourishing them this whole time. They took the credit to themselves. So when it says kings of the earth, I think it also would mean rulers of the earth and the rich of the earth, the servants of the earth. So in other words, there could also be those who are connected with Messiah and those who are connected with natural Israel who are on this earth. But when we're talking about the earth, we're meaning those who are of this world system. So those who, even though all this was also in being nourished from the heavens, that Israel is on the earth and those connected with Messiah are on the earth. So this is not talking about the kings of the sun or the kings of the moon or the servants of the moon, the officers, the wealthy. So it's not everybody. It's just those who are exalted and who are not bearing fruit, who are the leaves of this tree. And these are being hidden or are hiding, but not in the active. So they're like being in a state of hiding themselves in the caves and in the and cliffs and burrows of, this could be, it's not the earth, so specifically the ashes, where it could be like war on each other, things like this, where they, like the result passively is that it ends up in death. So it's an interesting consideration to think that maybe these aren't caves and bunkers that they're just going to actively hide themselves in. Perhaps this is due to them now being cut off. They're first admitting that we will be dispersed and be no more. We no longer can stand, but also that we will return to the earth from whence we were taken, even though we once were gods. So here is Abraham using this word in conjunction with ashes, and they're very similar because in modern Hebrew, the ngain and aleph sound the same as far as they're both silent. But in ancient Hebrew, this one had like a G sound to it. This has a guttural stop. So it's ngafar and afer. And then to compare this to, like, they're going to their rock versus we have a rock, Messiah, God, that is higher than us, where we are safe, but their rock is not our rock. So first, she referenced this verse that the first we said that the mountains and the hills were shaken, but the only one to remain is Jerusalem. So again, like this happened in Acts chapters 1 and 2, where they said that this was fulfilled with the sun being darkened, that mainly it's going to at least be fulfilled spiritually, and you'll see the results physically as far as Israel and those joined to Messiah. But not necessarily does the actual moon and the actual sun or actual mountains have to be shaken, though this is likely that this would also take place. I think that the spiritual meaning supersedes the other. So it's obviously talking symbolic of all those who are exalted, because we look to John the Baptist. He wasn't physically leveling mountains and hills. Again, like they were expecting in Messiah's day for this to be a physical takeover. No, this is the spiritual kingdom coming down to earth, and the earth, the old kingdom passing away, and then the new kingdom being established. So you also see stuff manifesting in the physical, but it's not actually talking about physical mountains and hills, though this could also happen. So then she also referenced like the loftiness of man being bowed down, and so they're going to cut off all those things that they thought could save them, that they worshipped, and they're going to go in the holes of the rocks, the caves of the earth, from the terror of the Lord. And we'll see that this verse says, and they're saying to fall on us. So this might be similar to like them first admitting we will be dispersed, and also like we will be within the earth, that we will return to the earth, to dust and to ashes, just as another take on this, that it might not be something physical, that they're going to hide and save themselves from these physical events, but more specifically and more likely, though the other could happen, is that they're going into like their tombs. They're burying themselves in the hate and death and destruction until they are no more. They disperse and they return to the earth. And as you can see, the moral of this passage is that nothing that they thought was their life source, that they looked up to, all of this has been leveled and proven to be nothing, and to not trust in man, that they will not even be able to save themselves. So the result of this shaking is basically death, that his breath is in his nostrils. What account is he? Meaning it's all vanity. They have no fruit. They have no connection with God. So don't trust in them, because they're not even going to be able to save themselves. So they're not going into the mountains and rocks to be saved, and asking for there be a cave in so that they can be trapped in there and be safe. I think more it's where they're seeing that they are in this state of vanity, of being dispersed and returning to dust and ashes. If the mountains and hills of the earth are being shaken, then why would they go to these, being that these were people who were their idols, for refuge? Because it specifically says that they cast their idols aside. So perhaps this is the imagery of people taking hold of the hem of a Jew and begging for mercy, to like not have judgment upon them. That picture that we have in the prophets, that this would happen. So the mountains and the rocks that they go to could be pleading for mercy from the true mountains and the rocks that are not being shaken. And I'm saying to fall on us could be like taunting them to say, like, go ahead and finish us off. So I had considered that they're saying to the mountains and rocks to fall on them as a means of self-preservation, because with a cave-in, maybe then the heat of the actual sun wouldn't strike them or something, and they'd be safer. But it does seem that they are wishing that they were never alive. When you look at this passage, they're saying, blessed are the barren womb, the wombs that never bear, the breasts that never nursed. So they're wishing that they never even existed. So in that context, they're just wishing for their life to be over. And also when you look here at Hosea, it tells you what the high places are. The sin of Israel is being destroyed. So those are the mountains and the hills that are being destroyed. So the mountain, well, there's only like one actual mountain, Jerusalem, but that this mountain covers the whole entire earth. Maybe also like on 7 hills or something. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of the possibility that this is not their idol mountains, but rather the sun and the moon believers and actual Israel, asking them to just wipe them out. They're just basically surrendering to their state of death and to the choices that they had made. But them, so Tarim, hiding themselves in by returning to the dust from which they were taken, that is not enough to hide them from the presence of the sight of the one or this that sits upon the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. And so they say this word again, soter. They're asking the mountain and the rocks. The fact that it's plural makes me want to question, unless it's individuals amongst the rock, because all being the body of Messiah, being the rock, and Jerusalem being the mountain. Messiah is the cornerstone, so we're all stones built up to be this temple. So it could be plural rocks, because they're asking individuals instead of the Lamb themselves to fall on them. And we can compare this with the word nafal in the Old Testament, where it could mean to fall on someone like in battle, but there's another word that's similar that can also be used. So actually, Nephal is where we get the Nephilim, the fallen ones. It's not used of the attacker falling on someone, but rather the result that the people fell from being attacked. So Nephal, the word used in our manuscript, seems to, even though they're asking these mountains and hills to fall on them, maybe the mountains and hills don't. Not in the sense of the devil is trying to deceive even the elect, and they're trying to get the mountains and hills to also fall. But the mountains and hills are not shaken as far as those who are of the sun, those who are born from above, and of the moon. So here is the other, and in the English, it looks exactly the same. I'll have to go back to show you. But this is the word for fall. So in the English, they both get translated as fall. But when you say go fall upon someone, that is a different word, pa, nga. So here you can see its uses to fall on someone as far as to strike them, often to kill them. This word nafal, though, is like the fallen ones. So they may try to get you, who is still standing and is unshaken, to resort to violence, to hate, to fall on them. And the encouragement here may be to just let go and not fall on them as far as look for war. Instead, look for peace. Always love first before judgment, peace before war. So here we have this word stand, where it said like they're shaken from their place coming from the same word to stand. So they're admitting that they're not able to stand. But even in their fallen state, they're asking the mountains and rocks to, is still not enough. They can still see the sight of the one sitting on the throne and the wrath of the Lamb. And they want the mountains and rocks to fall on them, but these are the mountains and the rocks might be the ones that are standing. So here they're admitting that they can't stand, but even in their already fallen state, they want to be further fallen upon. They were the leaf, the Allah, and now like to fall on someone has that similar word fall. So you're coming from above. So now they're admitting that these mountains and rocks are above them, and they want them to conceal them. But perhaps if this is like resorting to violence, and if these are those who are standing, like the true mountains and rocks, that they don't do this. And one indication is, so this is the same word for mountains here, but it's a different word for rocks. So here they hide in caves, different word for rocks, and burrows of dust. And then, so it's like a different rock, because the end of Deuteronomy says that their rock is not our rock. So we have two forms of rock. So this could indicate that this is a different rock than where they had initially been like burying themselves in. Only the mammals who chew the cud and divide the hoof, they're able to discern between the good and the evil, are the ones that are clean. So this word Selah can also mean to pause and think about it. And that could be the difference between this rock up here, which could also mean a cliff, versus this rock, because we can compare this. You can see it's basically the same word, where the psalmist is saying to pause and think about it. Selah is the same word that gets translated also as rock. So this type of rock could be like an indication that these are those who pause and think about it or chew the cud. So this could be a clean rock. I think the encouragement for us here is those who are joined to the Lamb, those with the church of Thyatira, they will be this instrument of iron that shatters the vessels of clay, but not out of hate, coming from a place of love, of desiring for peace, of just letting go of what is not so that what remains, to be able to disconnect, to reveal any kind of light within in the vessels. So it's the day of the wrath of the Lamb. It's here. And those who are able to stand have this armor. So they become immortal. They can withstand all of this shaking. It doesn't move them. So to not be moved even by any kind of last ditch efforts of the fallen ones, to say to also become fallen like us, to also be shaken by these things. No, we are not shaken by these things. We know the one in which we stand, and the light is dawning. Even if we don't have this full revelation of all things, we have this connection to the revealer of all things. And so the light is coming on us. The sixth seal has already been unsealed, so we have access to the full wisdom and understanding of God. Do not be moved by any of these events, so just to let go of them and to let be what will be the result that they have chosen, that they understand they're in this place of wandering, that they're returning to the dust, and to just kind of make peace with that. Everybody has this free will to decide, and like God is able to bring them to another world or something so they can continue their journey there, but that this world is becoming a kingdom of just light, that the darkness is fleeing, that the old world is completely dying. It will be no more. So we're not going to have these dual consciences anymore. So those who have chosen the light, to be clothed with the sun, says like the moon at the feet, that we are joined with Israel, all born from above and not shaken by these things. So anyway, that concludes chapter 6 review of this Cochin Hebrew manuscript. Thanks so much for watching, and Hashem bless you.